Alright lads, another update, another Challenger 2 to review. We now have around 5 Challenger 2 variants currently in War Thunder. We actually have more tanks in game than the British Army has in real life. Joking aside though, the Challenger 2E isn't actually featured in the British Army. It was a model designed for export, I believe, to Greece, and never saw active service. With an upgraded 1500 horsepower engine, new Commander's independent thermal imaging, as well as the addition of an M2 Browning 50 cal, is the Challenger 2E worth grinding in War Thunder? Well, at the minute it currently sits in the 7th rank of the British tech tree at battle rating 11.3 in arcade, realistic and simulator. You'll have to grind out 400,000 research points and purchase it for the cost of 1,080,000 silver lions. This is quite a long grind, sitting at the very end of the British Challenger 2 line, so is it really worth it? Well, apart from its upgraded 1500 horsepower engine, the firepower and armor protection are arguably worse than the preceding tanks, as it features no theatre entry standard kit or active protection systems. We simply have that upgraded engine. So lads, should you grind this vehicle, or is it just another pass, like the majority of the British tech tree unfortunately? If you'd like to know the answer to that question boys, then stick around for the rest of the video. Alright lads, welcome back. Starting it off with a bang, and because this is a British engine, that bang could be quite literal. But anyway, as I've said, this tank is powered by an engine reducing 1500 horsepower, which is a big upgrade compared to the previous Challenger engine, which was 1200 horsepower, so a 300 horsepower improvement. And as well as getting a more powerful engine, the Challenger 2E is actually the lightest Challenger 2 variant in the game, weighing at only 62.5 tons. It's around 1 ton lighter than the regular Challenger 2 or the first Challenger 2. The bastards probably threw out the tea-making equipment. Anyway, with your reduced girth and more powerful engine, the power to weight ratio has been increased, up to a pretty good 24 horsepower per ton. This is pretty good, especially considering that the original Challenger 2 had a power to weight ratio of 19.1. This generally allows the Challenger 2E to get up to speed a lot faster. I've noticed that the acceleration is a lot better, but the tank is still incredibly sluggish, especially when you're trying to go around urban maps. So while the addition of the new power is very welcome, it hasn't really dealt with the core downside of the Challenger 2, and that was its sluggishness on tight urban areas. The top speed of 72 km per hour is also pretty decent, and with that acceleration you do achieve it pretty quickly. The reverse speed of 35 km per hour again is also very good, especially considering Soviet reverse speeds, so you can get out of a pickle pretty quickly in this vehicle. Overall though, it's still nowhere near as fast as some of the gas turbine powered engines like the BVM and the M1A2, but it is still a nice welcome to the British tech tree, and although it doesn't make the Challenger 2's meta, it at least makes them somewhat competitive. Somewhere that the Challenger 2 will never be competitive though is the armor layout and the armor scheme. We see here going up against the DM53 round of the Leopard 2A6, and to be fair, this is the most powerful shell in the game, but it does give a good accurate representation of the weakness of the Challenger 2's armour. The lower frontal plate is basically non-existent, with only around 146mm of armour, basically 6 inches. The so-called strong points of the Challenger 2's hull armour, either side of the driver's port, again is an easy penetration for the DM53. Providing 530mm of protection. Moving up to the turret though, and things do get a bit better. The turret cheeks provide 720mm of protection, but again you can see that these cheeks take up around 2/3 of the vehicle, and if we take a look at the mantlet itself, protection drops down sharply down to just over 300mm of protection. So kind of like the M1A2 Abrams, the protection is good in theory. You have very thick armor at points, but you have very large areas of the tank, very visible areas of the tank, which are very easy to penetrate pretty much by every top tier main gun. Because of this you can't really brawl in the Challenger 2, it's kind of a long distance sniper. But because of the relative weakness of your own gun, which we'll get onto next, playing as a sniper isn't really that good of a playstyle for this vehicle. But just to prove my point even more, if we take a look at this protection map, we can see that the DM53 can penetrate pretty much everywhere in the front of the vehicle, with the exception of the turret cheeks. Again, this is the most powerful tank at top tier, so some of the lower boss rating tanks will struggle a little bit more, but the point is that the entire front of the vehicle is a lol pen for basically anything. Just don't shoot the turret cheeks and you're pretty much guaranteed to go through. Alright, so talking about that relatively weak gun, and we have the same 120mm L30A1. This tank is actually firing the strongest shell or the most modern shell for the Challenger 2. And the reason it is so weak compared to some of the other nations is that it is a 2-part ammunition. So you can't really have a very long armor piercing penetrator rod because it has to be short enough to get a charge behind it. Whereas most other tank guns use cased ammunition where they have the propellant surrounding the rod. Anyway, enough of those random facts. I thought it might be a little bit interesting for people because that is the major weak side of the Challenger 2's gun. Well, that and the fact it's rifled, I guess. But anyway, we have a ready rack of 4 rounds, which again isn't the best to be honest, but the gun handling characteristics are pretty good. We've got 10 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of elevation, and we've got a 2-gun plane stabilizer as you'd expect. The reload of the tank is also pretty good, much better than some of the Soviet autoloaders, but not as good as the Type 10 in the Japanese tech tree. With a stock crew, we reload every 6.5 seconds, and with an ace crew, that decreases to 5 seconds. So very competitive, albeit we do have rather weak ammunition, which we're now going to cover. You can see that we have 5 types of ammunition available to us, 3 of which are APFSDS rounds. I'm not going to cover all of these because they are rather weak, but we are going to cover the HESH shell, the L31A7, as this is your go-to shell for taking out some of the lighter vehicles in the game, such as SPA and the light tanks. It has a very low muzzle velocity, but makes up for that in a very high TNT charge of 6.5 kilos. This gives you 6 inches of penetration no matter the range or angle, or 152mm to be precise. This round is actually very powerful and very underrated, but with its low muzzle velocity it makes it very hard to use, particularly at long range, and as I said, you want to really play this thing as kind of a sniper, and at those long ranges it is very hard to lead HESH shells. But when you finally grind this vehicle all the way out, you will unlock the L27A1 round. This moves much faster than HESH at 1650 meters per second, but unfortunately due to its 2-part nature, the armor penetration values just aren't that good anymore. We can only manage to penetrate 564mm of penetration at point blank range basically, and against angled armor around 60 degrees it drops down to 326mm. Compared to the DM53 round, we penetrate about 100mm less at point blank range, and at armor angled against 60 degrees, we penetrate around 50mm less. So the L27A1 is substantially weaker than the DM53 in pretty much every category. But the Challenger 2 does have weak ammunition, but it does have a very snappy rate of fire. It's got very good thermal imaging as well as a laser rangefinder. Overall though, the enhanced engine of the Challenger 2E is very welcome, as I've said. It does make the Challenger 2s better. Again, it is only one vehicle, so you will want to put backups on this. I've basically just been back up in the 2E and then not really trying to take out the other Challenger 2s, because the 2E is a big leap up in competitiveness compared to the other Challengers. I don't think it's really the enhanced engine which makes it better. I think it's just so much lighter. Some of the Challenger 2s are like 75 tons, whereas this thing's 62. So I think it's more the diet plan that it's been on rather than the better engine. But anyway, to finish this thing, it's a welcome change, but it's not really enough really. It's like if I went on a diet, it'd be better, but probably not good enough. Anyway lads, on that slightly depressing ending to the video, I'm sure self-deprecating humour aside, it's a staple of YouTube at the minute. But anyway, big thank you to all my YouTube members, as well as to everyone who watches and supports this. I would recommend grinding out the Challenger 2E if you do play the British tech tree quite a lot. As I said, it is a good tank. It's just brought down by Britain in general, really. But anyway lads, thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.